Sustainability Advisory Board is meeting on Monday, December 2nd. And Emma, would you please take the roll call?
Margie Davy,
Here.
Lisa Marone,
Here.
Jacob Claymeyer,
Here.
Alyssa Ranke, Vic Oliver,
Here.
Brad Spanbauer,
Here.
Joe Stevenson,
Here.
and Jaden Zern.
Here.
7 present, we have quorum.
Thank you. I'm guessing there's no public comment tonight, so we will move on to approval of the minutes for the November 4th meeting.
Motion to approve November 4th meeting minutes.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. The 2025 SAB calendar meeting dates and discussion, which means that we need to deal with some of the times when the first Monday happens to be a holiday. And look at this. She is amazing. There is a calendar for us. So we're good in January, February, March. Wow. It really only affects us once?
Yeah.
That is
Can't be real.
very unusual. So,
Cinco de Mayo.
September.
I was gonna point out July as well. Are you still good with meeting on the 7th? I just know with the 4th being on a Friday, I don't know if that's gonna be a difficult meeting to get to, or if you think that's fine, we can just keep it.
I think that one's fine.
Okay.
Does anybody have any problems with that?
Not
No?
yet.
Okay.
Just say not yet.
Yeah.
So it's now or never.
Yeah.
So September, do we want to look at the following Thursday, the 4th, like we usually do? Or is there a better time someone would like to suggest?
I like just kind of going the Thursday of that week.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds
Let's go
Thursday
with
the
September 4th, 2025
Okay.
then.
All right.
And I don't think we need to vote to approve that, we just got her done. Okay, tree protection, chapter 26, trees and vegetation. Discussion.
So Jake, I don't know if you want to talk on this. I did print out copies for everyone. I know not very sustainable of me, but it was, just so everybody has a copy and we can go through comment by comment.
Yeah, for a
Thank
bit of
you.
review
That's
from the last meeting, we thought it might be a little bit easier to, to
Here.
look at this, the different amendments that we had proposed, and look at it in comment form against the current chapter 26, which covers trees and vegetation. I did my best to incorporate Joe's recommendations in his ordinance into the different sections, as well as call out some areas that I thought might be good areas to change as well. So in general, if you haven't read through this before, there's standard definitions, there's specifications, it defines the city forester role, what is public nuisance, what people can do, prohibited acts against public trees and shrubs, planting, removal, maintenance of public trees and shrubs, relocation, and other permits required, as well as penalties at the very end. So in the intent and purpose section, I have a note here that says just adding 2 other potential benefits. I would of course be open to any other recommendations from the advisory board on what other intents and purposes we might have for this. I just thought these 2 to promote native tree canopy coverage and biodiversity, as well as increasing trees to reduce stormwater surge volume, urban heat island effect, and cooling costs would be good things to call out, because that's really what we want to try to protect with this ordinance.
I would agree with that.
And if the city has any recommendations on language, I don't know how
Of
much
course, yeah.
legal, definitions need to be in there, but
So this is all existing code that we are modifying.
Correct. Yeah, Jake went through and, made points of what he felt needed, some updates.
Got it.
Forestry is actively working on updating this code with legal, so
Okay.
this was at least like a starting point, what SAB comments were, and so I don't know if you want to add anything to it.
I like the next comment too about using the drip line instead of a radius, because that so much depends on the size of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, one other note, it didn't come across just because it's in black and white, but there's, number 12 here is slightly less black. It's kind of a gray color. It was red in the original one, and that's an added measure as well. So I copy pasted this from yours, Joe, and then I made this comment that we should maybe be thinking about, instead of specifying a radius area for the tree protection zone, utilizing a drip, the drip zone, which is essentially the exterior part of the canopy.
Sure.
As I think they called that out in other ordinances in the college paper. But
Yeah.
Okay, so it currently does include the tree protection zone, or we added that?
we added that.
Okay,
That
and then you made the
whole-
change with it?
Yeah,
Okay,
that
got it,
whole one is
just
If
so
we
I
have a
understand.
computer, it's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, here, I think.
I was gonna bring my computer. I should have. Oh, okay, there, yeah. Perfect.
Or
Oh,
green.
it's green, nice. What a jerk.
Good choice.
Yeah, I think it chose that on purpose.
Tree shall be 2 feet from the curb.
I think the other maybe point of discussion here is just that it's defined as any tree with a trunk diameter of at least 6 inches. So any smaller trees wouldn't have a tree protection zone potentially. I'm not sure if that's intentional or if it's just because they're easy to replace, they're small enough.
I'm guessing that's what it is. It's the easy to replace. I mean, that's the rationale. I guess I'm indifferent on what the.
Where is that part?
Just in this tree protection zone, number 12 that we just,
Oh, defined as any tree with a trunk of at least 6 inches measured at DBH, or at least 15 feet tall. Yeah. I think that makes sense.
okay. Would people be supportive of the changing to drips, to only the drip line versus the 50-foot radius?
Yeah.
I would add the drip, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, of at least.
Okay, so as we walk through it here, I'm looking at 26-5. It talks about some of the common tree diseases and as what they're defined as, and special requirements around abatement. I think the city has done a good job helping with that and also controlling the spread of those diseases. But it's worth reviewing. 26-6, prohibited acts regarding public trees and shrubs. So this is where it says, you pretty much can't poison or otherwise harm public trees without the express written permission of the city forester. So that's already on the books.
Do we need to add this includes contractors?
I think where the contractors would be covered is during construction, but I suppose other types of contractors, like landscaping contractors, may not be included. It really, I think, includes everybody, though. No person, unless we're talking about businesses, doing harm.
Yeah.
I know there's certain corporations have like
Person power.
person power. So that might be a good amendment. Because really, we don't want to necessarily hold a person accountable. If it's
How
like a
about-
contracting company, the contracting company needs to pay that fee, not the person necessarily.
What about saying no person or entity shall?
Yeah, I was gonna say person or entity.
Kind of covers our butts a little better.
Cool.
And then,
Emma, I assume this is all going to go through legal anyway, right?
Yep.
So
I'm imagining somebody going up to Travis and saying, "I'd like your permission to protect one of my trees." What do you mean? I'm gonna stand in front of it? And Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anything saying you can't protect a tree, like with a fence or otherwise
Yeah.
monitoring.
I thought the verbiage was funny here.
Yeah.
It's clear that what they meant.
Okay, 26-7, planting, removal, maintenance, and protection of public trees. So this is where I thought our, at the end of this would be a good section to add things. But really, it's also talking about, like, people can't plant things in public spaces either without permission or maintenance, those trees otherwise. So wrote here, Joe had recommended a similar provision, but stated that trees may be planted in a terrace of less than 3 feet in width and at least 8 feet from any private water or sewer lateral. And the one that's in there already, I think is already on the books. It says no tree shall be planted closer than 2 feet from the curb line or the street edge. So that really requires what, like a 4-foot
Yeah,
terrace?
I think that's the line I was running into, because I know my terrace is like 3 feet and some change.
Sure.
Or our road.
I think, I mean, just in my personal anecdotal experience, I've seen plenty of trees that are kind of bursting at the seams, and it does potentially cause some harm to the sidewalk. But when we're looking at the different benefits from having city like street trees and potentially the selection of those trees that may not grow larger, there are some smaller varieties that could fit in a smaller than 4-foot terrace.
And that's what I was, I guess, kind of advocating for. It's not just a blanket statement that no tree can be put in. There's species for everything.
Yeah, that's what I would say too, is if we can find a way to make that work, more trees.
I guess the question would be, instead of 4 feet, what do we think the recommended width would be then?
12 inches deep in good soil.
Yeah, it is about depth as well, huh?
Trees may be planted in a terrace of at least.
I know, whenever I talk to people about this, I know that we plant trees in our downtown, and you can go as small as a 2-foot by 2-foot grate.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's when I say it, like, I feel like I'm being generous when I say 3 feet, but.
Well, and I don't know what the city has, if there would be a lot of locations where it's tighter than that.
Yeah, and
I
that's.
think there probably are,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
And I can't imagine this is going to be like a thing where everybody and their brother comes running for a tree. It's just people like me who want trees in their yard get told they can't have one.
Yeah, it's important to bring up too, the city forester had previously stated, like, if any citizens want a tree in their terrace, like, just to email him, and they would put it on a list to potentially get a tree planted there if it's appropriate, so.
But if the size of your terrace isn't right, then they won't.
Yeah, then they would notify him and just say, like, hey, just so you're aware, your terrace is too small for a root ball or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would support 3 feet or 2 feet squared.
Yeah, I think that's good.
And I put in the 8-foot. I'm indifferent on the lateral thing too. I put that in more to. I know Public Works likes it, but also in my experience, there usually if you got I guess it's different if you have like a lead one. You can get into lead pretty easily, but like a plastic lateral typically has pretty good resistance to just about everything.
Is that called out? Because I guess I remember in one of our last conversations that was called out somewhere already, or is that not?
I don't know.
Was that just a suggestion we had made? Was there something already about trees can't be planted within a certain distance?
There's probably something about utilities or utility easement or something.
Okay.
I can't imagine there isn't.
Well, and why would anybody want to plant on top of a sewer lateral? You know?
Yeah,
And
yeah. I
that's
mean,
the thing.
not saying that's what we're
Most
suggesting.
people are not going to.
Yeah.
If they're aware, and they should have
Yeah.
requested those little flags, you know,
Yeah,
for
and you're
everything.
supposed to do a digger's hotline, like ticket if you go to plant anything, so you're not blowing up your house.
Or your neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any place else where that's called out. Well, why don't we submit it like this and see if anybody else wants to make changes?
Mhm.
We maybe should request that Public Works look at it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I think they're involved with the rewrite process, but if you're good with this document, or if you want to take it and look at it further and make more comments, and then I can pass it along.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah.
We've got to turn the pages.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we're not done.
I mean, I figure if we're already looking at modifications, it's good to look at all of the potential improvements that we would recommend. I think at the end of this, once we go through it too, I'd want to have a discussion around which ones of these should be grouped together for council approval, if we should be lumping these all together, or if we would potentially take some of these just by themselves. I think that would give a better opportunity of more of these going through than an entire package that somebody might take issue with one particular issue on. I'm not sure, Joe, if
Yeah.
you would move to modify it in situ, at city council, or if we should
I
be
guess
splitting them up. But
let's see what the rest of them are, but no, I
Okay.
don't mind the strategy behind it, I suppose.
okay.
I think this one, E, looks good.
Am I correct in thinking that the planning department is looking at revising codes right now anyway?
Correct.
Is that just zoning codes?
Yeah.
So that would not affect this?
No, that wouldn't affect this.
Okay.
I'm thinking that they're going to want to send all of them if they're going to send them, because they're not going to want them on agenda after agenda after agenda.
Yeah,
It might get
sure.
confusing, but I mean, it's just, if it's taking some time, maybe the ones, just the definitions or something, can get pushed forward. I'm not quite sure. It'll be up to Forestry, Public Works, and Legal here, because this is not a code that planning enforces, unfortunately, but.
Okay.
I like the soil one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that looks good.
Yeah, it's kind of the bare minimum, right? You got to have some organic content.
Have soil.
Yeah.
In your soil,
And I think it could be a little bit more specific, but at the same time, leaving it open might be a little bit lower cost for folks. So.
And I think also just highlighting that we're asking for a type of soil, makes the intent that we want a quality soil, right? And the
Mhm.
fact that we're calling it out means that we're not just accepting any kind of soil. And the forester, he directly said this was an issue, so.
Okay. Next one is 26-9, tree protection during construction on private property or public property. It's interesting. This section, it has some definitions, but it actually doesn't have any other content in it currently. So I'm not sure what the history on that is, but this is where I would move to amend and add the tree protection zone protections, right? In that, we define marking and protection. Say that the tree protection zone must be visibly marked using non-invasive removal methods like ribbons or tags. So this is on the bark or on the trunk at eye level so that people know not to remove that tree. I had some comments on it that, other university reports utilize markings placed at a distance from the tree, no less than the diameter of the drip line. So essentially you're having a protection zone that protects the roots and actually somewhat of a barrier. Some go as far as to define what should be used, flagging tape and cones. But really, somebody could still, with this, how it's currently written, drive over the roots repeatedly, right? Or scrape up the dirt around the tree. And it might already be prohibited, to damage the roots or whatever, but I think it's just a question of how we really want to protect the trees, right? Is marking it going to be enough? Could that be misconstrued as maybe chop this one down?
Yeah.
I remember when the students presented, there were examples of stakes that had ribbon around them, or even the metal, kind of the temporary metal fencing.
Like a stanchion, sort of.
Yeah, but putting that basically at the edge of the tree canopy and just kind of encircling the area of trees that you would want to protect. I might lean that way. I agree that putting something on the tree could be construed as confusing.
Yes.
I would also, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of jumping ahead here a little bit, but I notice in your 3A1, caution is taken to minimize tree damage. I mean, I think caution is taken to prevent tree damage, and preventing tree damage would include a more substantial barrier around the trees to have them protected during construction.
Yeah.
Not just like a little red flag that means like, don't cut this one down, which someone could clearly mean to cut this one, you know.
Yeah, I agree that, and Joe, I don't mean to parse your
right.
words, I really wanted to just copy paste what you had into where I thought it was appropriate and then provide some comments. I really, what I'd suggest is we talk about what sort of barrier or marking would be most appropriate, and letting the other section that says that you can't damage trees kind of define what they can't do within that zone, right? These sort of prohibited activities that are on the A section, it says no disturbance shall occur in the tree protection zone without prior written consent of the city forester. Like, having that statement in there is needed, but the except for, I think kind of the exceptions should be removed as well. Just because construction of impermeable surfaces is pretty much what the initial issue was.
Yeah, but the reason I put this in is because a 15-foot diameter around a tree, really all we're talking about, like on my street, we're just talking about the tree protection zone is really just my strip of terrace and the tree, not the sidewalk. They will have to do construction within the sidewalk that is within the tree protection zone. So I guess that's what I was trying to get at there, was that, like, yes, we want a tree protection zone, but understand that on a road, 95% of the tree protection zone is within an area that needs to be reconstructed, whether it's a road or a sidewalk or something.
I mean,
And
do
there's
we
no
want the
need.
city forester to be involved with that sidewalk construction? Because I don't think it disallows them from disturbing that area. It's more so like saying that they can't disturb it unless the city forester. It's like the city forester should be notified if they're
Yeah.
reconstructing a sidewalk next to a tree.
I think that's the current practice, and that's what they're hoping to continue moving forward. So I do think that the forester should be, I mean, I recommend that he stay involved
Yeah.
in that process.
Well, and going back to 26 to 12, tree protection zone means, I thought, so this 15-foot radius area, we were going to shrink that to just the drip zone, or the drip, whatever it's called.
The drip line.
Drip
yeah.
line of the tree. So are we shrinking it to that? Is it 15-foot
It
radius?
It depends on the
or-
size of the tree.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be bigger.
So yeah, I guess
Oh,
that
I see,
was-
extending from the trunk.
That was my only
Or
rationale
the
for
drip
putting
line.
That stuff in there was to reiterate that the tree protection zone does not mean you cannot construct no matter what.
Yeah.
It was giving them a little bit of an out that says, yeah, we're putting a road in, but it's in the tree protection zone.
Right.
There's a road here.
That helps a lot. That makes more sense. Yeah.
And that was the only, I don't know. I was trying to come up with a way to say that.
Sure.
But Jake, I think to your point, I mean, I think it's good to just sort of call out specifically, the intent here is to just like do and prevent the least amount of harm or damage to kind of the immediate surrounding area. So however we need to define that, I guess maybe is that kind of the question. Are we trying to decide on like what the barrier is?
Yeah, I think we need to decide that in marking and protection, the number 2
Yeah.
point here.
Do you have any thoughts, Lisa?
I think it's a good idea that we come up with a barrier, like let's call it out. What's the barrier going to be? And then, and I'm just a little confused, I guess, on the 15 number, so.
The 15-foot radius?
Yeah, so like it'll be different based on how large the tree or small the tree is. Do we need to elaborate on that at all, or is that common knowledge?
You're gonna have to define what a drip line is.
Right,
there you go.
which we do. right afterwards, in parentheses, it says the area directly under the canopy of the tree. So if it's a humongo
Right.
willow, it could be,
Yeah,
40 feet. But if it's, well, I don't know, a birch tree, it could be a lot smaller, right? And I'm not a tree person. I mean, I know you plant them in the ground and they grow, but do the roots tend to go out way beyond the drip line?
It depends.
Or
on
do
the
they,
kind.
Also
it depends on the type of
tree.
tree, right?
Yeah,
But they sure can.
right.
So there's really no way that we could say protect the roots of the trees,
Well,
because we don't know exactly where they're gonna be.
No, and then if you're gonna, then you're gonna get into the whole, like, all the stuff under the ground too, so all the pipes and lines and stuff, and,
Which we want to be sure people avoid anyway.
You'll get the good bulk of roots though for how wide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For with the tree canopy,
Yeah.
the drip
Mhm.
line.
yeah.
I would say maybe we should just get rid of that 15-foot radius then and just use just drip line.
Now,
Does-
now I'm kind of thinking like about like a really tall pine tree, like that has a pretty small drip
Oh,
line
sure.
in relation to its size.
Yeah.
Though too. So like maybe like we could say either or, the
Yeah, or the
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 Greater
greater of
two.
the two,
The
or the
greater
greater
of
of
two,
one
yeah.
option.
yeah, to give them some options. It's
A 15-foot radius or the extent of the drip line.
yeah.
So we got to add that in there.
And I guess, so I'm reading, but I don't know, tree protection zone. It's, I guess, so in my mind, it was an area that we're trying to, like, not have trees get chopped down, not have people constantly drive over, like, roots and stuff. So I think we have to define kind of what, we make a definition that just says a tree protection zone is an area, but then we don't really say what it is. Does it, in that tree protection zone section, are we saying like what happens in that area? Because right now all I'm hearing is we've marked it.
Yeah, it's during construction on public property, you have to mark it, is how I think it currently reads. I don't know if it comes into play at other times.
But then I'm saying like we mark it, but what happens within that marking? We have to physically, is it covered in here somewhere? It says like within that marking, don't drive over it, don't dig in it, don't.
Yeah, I
See what I'm
think
saying?
the only thing we say is no disturbance shall occur in the tree protection zone without prior written consent
Okay.
from the city forester.
Yeah.
So
And that's
maybe
that
we got to
whole-
define
that's a-
disturbance,
Sure.
or
Hmm.
and kind of thinking through it some more too. If we're on the terrace and the 15-foot radius goes into the streets or something, you're not going to necessarily put a cone across the entire street requiring closure if you're having, say, like lane differences. So it is good that we're calling out. It's like we almost have to define that in marking and protection though too, that it's the extent that isn't covered by the exceptions.
Yeah, because then we'd be closing off sidewalks and stuff then.
Yeah. I could take another stab at rewriting this, given the comments that you've all provided, just to make it maybe a little bit more clear if that would help the city, or if the city wants to go through and do that change too, but I'm happy to synthesize some of those things
Okay,
too.
yeah, it's up to the board, so if you wanna take another stab at it and before staff looks at it, that's fine. Otherwise, we can have staff look at it and work together, so it's really up to the group.
Yeah, I like what you've done. If you want to do more, go for it. I thank you for the effort.
Mhm.
Sure. Yeah, I think this format works
Yeah.
well for future stuff too. Yeah.
And I guess I don't really find anything in here like, I don't know, super out of this world. So yeah.
So is our discussion concluding that we should have Jake take another stab at this after getting all of our input, and then we'll bring it back next month? Is that what I heard?
Is that timeline sufficient for what we're trying to do here?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I don't want to slow it
I was-
down. Do you know what I'm saying? 'Cause like, I don't
Yeah,
wanna-
I think with this one, in all honesty, if we get done before like construction season, we're gonna, I mean, nobody's planting or building trees
Fair
right now.
point.
so
Yeah,
it's
that's-
just-
I
we
think-
we have a fair bit of time.
I think just with December and the holidays coming up, it's gonna be hard for staff to
Yeah.
even meet, so I think this is okay pushing off at least until January.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna
I
add that
could
to it.
use some feedback on the last two items. It's on the
Yeah.
last page as well. Before we move on.
Although very
So this is getting into penalties, section 13. There's a provision in there that anybody convicted of a violation of this section shall suffer a forfeiture not to exceed $500 and potentially some jail time. Potentially.
Remove that actually.
In default of payment.
I don't
Yeah.
want to go to jail.
And in default of payment, assessed imprisonment. So if you don't pay up, wow.
The problem with the jail time is if we've said any person or entity, how are we gonna stick an entity, you know? Here it just says every person, but I'm just
Just
saying
that
we had that other
person.
language in there earlier, so
Yeah.
maybe consider that too. I don't know how.
In addition.
I'd be open to, changing it from jail, to, just to be a fee. I'm sure there's other ways of recollecting funds, somebody has debt.
I like the part of the recommendation about requiring replacement of the tree.
Yeah.
fair market value.
Yeah, so I think 2 is already in there.
Mhm.
But, yeah, it just has restitution of the cost of the tree rather than, but I was recommending rather than reimbursement, we might require the replacement of the tree. So this kind of offsets the work of the city employees to
Yeah.
potentially put a tree back in.
Mhm.
It would be the responsibility of that person or entity to put the tree back in, which would be a better, kind of a bigger disincentive to hurt the trees.
Or they have to cover the
Or
additional
cost
cost
of-
of the trees and the additional time of the city employees or something.
At least
something like
including
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, it's probably better to have them cover all the costs than it would be to ask them to replace it, because they could, then you have to say, well, you have to get the forester's permission for what kind of tree you're planting and
Right.
make sure you have your
Plant it properly and correctly, so
Yeah.
just have professional service do that.
Okay. So instead of replacing the tree, making sure just the cost is associated, whether that be in the city or other quote provided. And then, tree replacement is also something that I had added as part of Joe's section as well. Any trees shall be replaced near the original location with trees of a similar size where feasible. Native Wisconsin species being preferred, new tree planted. So this is really saying it needs to be replanted in a similar area, not just anywhere, just to make sure that the people that are directly affected by the tree being removed get a tree if possible. And then also, I had added that having a similar size or the sum of the replacement's tree caliper. So saying like if you took a big tree, you can't just put in a
Big tree, yeah.
where it's not feasible. They'd be like, oh, well, it's not feasible, we're putting in a small one. So instead they would have to put in multiple.
Sure, you could put in, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Multiple smaller trees.
Yeah, what is the full code here?
And that could probably actually use the point system that the zoning department uses for landscaping anyway. I mean, we would have that
Sure.
reference that we could use.
I mean, I would agree with some language about, I mean, if you're gonna take out a 200-year-old oak tree, right, like you're not replacing that
Yeah.
in kind, right? So you're gonna have to replace that with something else. But I think like making that point clear would be good.
Okay.
So I like what you've added, and then I like your comment about the sum of the caliper.
Okay. So I'll go back, I'll hopefully synthesize the feedback you've all given into more straightforward, not like commented stuff, but just like green text where the changes are. And we'll take another look at it next month. Thanks for the input.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Jake, for doing this. We really appreciate it. Okay, let's move on then to number 7, Energy Innovation Grant, EIGP update.
It's the same update as last month, really. I believe the agreement is still being worked on with the firm and the city. I don't believe anything's been finalized yet or signed, so hopefully in the next few weeks.
Is there a deadline for when that project needs to be completed or started?
So they got back to like awardees later this year than they have in the past. So I believe that the timeline has also been extended then. So I think in past years it's been like June, but there may be some wiggle room now just because the state was kind of late.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Emma. Sustainability plan update. Discussion.
So in total, we got 8 firms that submitted, so that was great.
Did
They
you
were
say
all
8?
8,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a lot.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks to Jake for helping go through all of those submissions. It took us a long time. We narrowed it down to about 5 firms that we interviewed. And that's kind of where we're at now. We're kind of going through those interviews and just doing checks on prior projects and references and trying to narrow down who we'd like to work with. So yeah, super exciting. So.
Yeah, overall, the majority of the proposals that we got back were really professional. They looked really good. It like got us all excited about the potential for the new plan that's done like professionally, and yeah, the quality was definitely really good. So
It was definitely a good problem to have that we had so many good submissions. So yeah.
Were you able to look at some of the past projects or clients that they had and you felt like happy about their work?
Yeah, that was a requirement that we had, that they include references or any like past relevant projects. And yeah, I mean, it was just amazing to see, stuff all around the country that was occurring. So
Great.
And there's no problem with funding that, correct?
No.
We've got that all taken care of. Okay, cool. So we'll have another report next month, I bet, huh?
Yeah, hopefully some better updates then.
Okay, well then, agenda items for future meeting. We clearly have tree protection zones, an update on the Energy Innovation Grant, the Sustainability Plan update, and we still have native landscaping areas and Lomo spring and summer to discuss at a future meeting, which I think particularly the Lomo spring, we have to be sure we get on in January.
Okay. Agreed. I do have a comment regarding native landscaping areas. Unfortunately, staff couldn't meet this past month, but we do have a meeting scheduled next week to go over those minor edits that we discussed last meeting. And then just a note that we can talk further about in the workshop, but Jake did send me some resources regarding Chapter 30 of the zoning code, just talking about natives and non-natives. I'm hoping we can discuss that further and kind of lump those together for the January meeting and talk about the next steps and what that's going to look like as well. So.
yeah, if we have that on the agenda, I'd encourage anybody to go look at the Chapter 30. It's really long, but you can probably find the native tree, or native landscaping section, and look at the species that are allocated. We got that list from Wild Ones, as well as there's a million other sources, that I think would be really good to look at and revise. So.
And I can send that out. I guess the document online for the zoning code is super long, so I can help navigate. If you want to know exactly where to find it on what page, I don't mind clarifying.
Yeah, even a link to the chapter would be very helpful, having been there.
Yeah.
You'll just have to go through S1, S2, S3, S4, S5, the 1,000 zoning districts we have. So just single family.
Okay, is there anything else that anyone would like to recommend for a future agenda item?
Just reviewing the goals might be good to have on there as well for future.
Okay, and we'll be doing that in our workshop tonight too, so yeah, we'll have to update, we'll update goals probably next time.
Oh, I have something else for January, sorry. I was going to put on this agenda, but I'm hoping to update the board with the amount of like chicken and bee keeping permits that we had
Oh,
for
yeah.
2024. I can show you just data since those permits had started too, just to see, you know, the growth over the last couple of years, if that would be of interest. So we can kind of, and we talked about doing that annually just to see, so.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I did ask her to hold that because I knew we were going to have a workshop tonight, so we'll be here for a while yet anyway, but I would entertain a motion to adjourn to workshop.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.